Coming up on The World Today, Germany officially acknowledges that it committed genocide during its colonial era occupation of Namibia. Russia denies entry into some EU flights over plans to avoid Belarus airspace. And Britain approves Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine for use. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Joker Rogers. Germany has officially acknowledged that it committed genocide during its colonial era occupation of Namibia and has agreed to pay financial support. German colonizers killed tens of thousands of Herero and Nama people in the early 20th century massacres. Foreign Minister Heiko Maas today acknowledged the killings as genocide, and he says that Germany will, in a gesture to recognize the immense suffering inflicted on the victims, support the country's development through a program worth more than 1.1 billion euros. The agreement will reportedly see funding paid over 30 years through spending on infrastructure, healthcare and training programs benefiting the impacted communities. But reports say some traditional leaders have so far refused to endorse the deal. Leading opposition figure in Belarus says a nationwide strike is being planned to protest against the arrest of dissident journalist Roman Protasevich by President Alexander Lukashenko's government. Belarus has been subject to EU and US sanctions since President Lukashenko cracked down on protests after a disputed election last year. His decision to intercept an international airliner in Belarusian airspace on Sunday and arrest the 26-year-old blogger has brought restrictions on air travel and vows of much more serious action.
Stay safe.
Of course, there will be the second and I'd say the final wave of demonstrations, because protesting movement hasn't ended. It's always was continuing. But, you know, it's interesting that with such strong reaction of Western countries about this issue with flight, already rose new demonstrations. And yesterday we saw a rather big demonstration on the street of Minsk, and we hope that it will continue, and workers are being prepared for nationwide strike. And when everybody will be ready, so people will go out again on the streets.
The regime is clear.
Involvement of many countries is joint involvement of many countries will be more powerful, and of course Dutch government, I'm sure they will put as much efforts as necessary to start investigation on case about flight and recognizing Lukashenko's regime as terroristic.
In the meantime, Russia's foreign ministry has condemned the EU's call for Europe-based airlines to avoid Belarusian airspace, calling it completely irresponsible. Spokeswoman Maria Zakharova says the plan puts passenger safety at risk. This comes after Russia denied entry to two airlines that plan to avoid Belarus. EU leaders had acted after Belarus forced a Ryanair plane to divert and land in the capital Minsk. A Belarusian dissident journalist and his girlfriend were then arrested. Roman Protasevich and Sofia Sapega, who is a Russian citizen, are both in jail. The court on Friday rejected her appeal against a 2-month detention. Meanwhile, EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell says that there is a risk of an escalation after Moscow forced an Austrian plane to cancel a flight to the Russian capital on Thursday by withholding flight permission. The incident in Russia comes days after Belarus scrambled a fighter and used a false bomb alert to divert a Ryanair flight to Minsk and detain dissident journalists, and the plane traveling from Athens to Vilnius was almost in Lithuanian airspace when ordered to land.
About Belarus, yesterday there were some news about obstacles for European planes to take off and to land in Moscow. There was a big disturbance on the air traffic, but they still don't know if it is case by case, specific cases, or is a general norm from the Russian authorities in order to make European planes to overflight Belarus. We still don't know. Well, the risk always exists. The risk of an escalation always exists. It may happen that the whole air traffic control can be disturbed, or it's just a couple of individual cases. We are looking at that. Well, it's advancing. It's on track. I think we could be able to approve this mission. The problem will be to look for capacities. Apart from Portugal, who else is going to contribute?
When will it take place?
A couple of months.
The VOA's Charles Main joins us live from Moscow to tell us more about this story. Charles, welcome to the program.
Good to be with you.
So why is Russia withholding flight permission from some European airlines?
Well, formally, Russia's aviation agency said today that it needed more time simply to approve these new routes due to the increased volume of requests. Of course, as you know, some European flights are still making it through, for now anyway. But this does seem to be Russia essentially throwing sand in the eye of the EU for backing penalties against Belarus over the Ryanair incident. And in other words, kind of a look what you've brought upon yourselves moment. How long this will continue, we simply don't know.
We understand that Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko is in the Black Sea resort for talks with President Vladimir Putin. What can we expect from this meeting?
Well, this is not an emergency meeting because of the Ryanair incident. This is previously scheduled, but it's part of a continuation of the Putin-Lukashenko relationship. Certainly, if we look back to large mass protests which broke out in Belarus last year due to these flawed presidential elections. This is an election that Lukashenko claimed to have won in a landslide, but many in Belarus feel he lost. This is essentially, he's been coming to Putin looking for Russian backing ever since. And Putin so far, even despite this sort of contentious relationship that they have, Putin doesn't seem to have particularly warm feelings for Alexander Lukashenko, but he's backed the Lukashenko regime thus far, mainly because when he looks around, he sees the alternatives. He sees people that are more aligned with the West. Lukashenko, in other words, for all his faults, is in Moscow's pocket, and Moscow feels that it can control him and perhaps his replacement when and if it needs to.
And so let's talk about the Ryanair diversion, which just happened on Sunday. What's Russia's position on this matter?
Well, a favorite Russian diplomatic talking point here has always been hypocrisy. They love to point this out whenever they can, and they have here. They say essentially that others have made similar moves against airliners. Most notably, they point to the U.S. They say that it made failed efforts to capture NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden, if you recall a moment when his plane, a plane of the Bolivian president, was forced down in Vienna after being denied access to airspace in Europe. Of course, you can judge for yourself whether this is a false equivalency or not, but certainly Russia's foreign ministry likes to point this out. They also say that the facts aren't in yet on this Ryan airliner case. They say we simply don't know, and there's been a rush to judgment by the West. But some have to wonder if Belarus would have made this move, or could have made this move, frankly, had it not had Moscow's backing to begin with.
So Roman Protasevic's girlfriend, Sofia Sapega, is a Russian citizen. So what's the government doing to free her from detention in Belarus?
Well, she seems to be essentially a tool by the Lukashenko regime to put pressure on Protasevich. And she's gotten consular visits from the Russian foreign ministry. They say that she's in good health and everything's okay so far. But of course, she's facing serious charges. She also was featured on Belarusian state TV, providing one of these video confessions that seem very much like sort of terrorist hijack kind of confessions. It's interesting to see. I think there's some assumptions that maybe Putin might have come out with a deal today to free her, perhaps, but he might not, because of course she's an opposition-minded Russian citizen, and Putin has no love for his own, opposition here within the country. It's interesting also to see that Lukashenko has made this case to Putin, whether Putin believes it or not, nobody knows. That essentially that all of this Ryanair incident and the protests we've seen over the past year are kind of a pre-trial version of what the West has in store for Russia. My sense is that Vladimir Putin maybe doesn't buy it, but certainly it's something that he's concerned about here at home as well.
Right, Charles, a pleasure speaking to you.
Likewise.
A single-dose COVID-19 vaccine made by Janssen has been approved for use in the UK by the medicines regulator. The vaccine was 85% effective in stopping severe illness from COVID-19 in trials and has met expected safety standards. 20 million doses have been ordered for the UK and will arrive later this year. It will be the fourth vaccine to be used in the UK to protect against COVID-19. Here's more on this and other stories on our global report.
J&J's vaccine is already approved in the United States and European Union, where reports of rare blood clots are being reviewed. The shot uses the similar viral vector technology to the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, where similar clots have been reported. Britain has advised that under 40s are offered an alternative to the AstraZeneca shot, and the government says that vaccine advisors, the Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunization, will also advise on how J&J's shot is used. Greece presented its COVID-19 digital travel certificate on Friday, saying it is ready to use it before its EU-wide launch on July the 1st. Greece is one of the early advocates of a certificate that would ease European Union travel curbs and help pull the country's economy from recession by lifting tourism revenues.
The EU digital COVID certificate is nothing more than a fast travel lane. It will make travel much easier, especially during the summer, particularly, again, let me repeat how important this is for us.
The European Council and Parliament last week reached a deal on the digital green certificate following a rapid pickup of vaccinations, allowing widespread lifting of coronavirus curbs. In Asia, Japan on Friday extended a state of emergency in Tokyo and other areas by about 3 weeks to June 20th. This comes as the COVID-19 pandemic shows no signs of easing less than 2 months before the Summer Olympics open. The state of emergency in the capital and 8 other prefectures had been scheduled to end on May 31st, and Japan has seen a record number of COVID-19 patients in critical condition in recent days, and on Friday, Tokyo reported 614 new cases. In Africa, Namibia has recently reported a rebound on the number of COVID-19 infection cases, putting its medical system under heavier burden.
We are experiencing a higher number of hospitalization. In other words, patients who have contracted COVID-19, they need to be hospitalized and they need to be put on oxygen. So the oxygen supply have become a bit of a challenge.
According to the data from the country's Ministry of Health and Social Services, the country with around 2 million people has registered 53,903 confirmed cases by Thursday. The country also detected 300 positive cases from 2,131 test samples in the past 24 hours, meaning the positive rate has reached 14%.
French President Emmanuel Macron visits South Africa to hold talks with President Cyril Ramaphosa. Do join us for details. Welcome back. French President Emmanuel Macron is in South Africa for an official state visit on how to deepen bilateral relations between both countries. President Cyril Ramaphosa is hosting him in Pretoria for talks expected to focus on COVID-19 vaccines, vaccine production in South Africa, trade, and possibly the Mozambique insurgency. Both presidents will hold talks and then head to the University of Pretoria to launch a program to support African vaccine production, a project backed by the European Union, the United States, and the World Bank. This is Mr. Macron's first visit to South Africa. The trip was initially scheduled to have taken place more than a year ago, but was postponed as the pandemic shifted into higher gear. The United Nations Refugee Agency says it's deeply concerned about reports of soldiers taking hundreds of people away from displacement camps in the Tigray region of Ethiopia earlier this week, saying such sites should be a safe haven. There have been reports that Eritrean and Ethiopian soldiers forcibly detained more than 500 young men and women from 4 camps for displaced people in the northern region.
On the subject, indeed, it is really worrying for us. I mean, UNHCR has received very disturbing reports from different community sources that soldiers entered a number of displacement sites in the town of Shire on Monday night and took away a number of youths in vehicles. Reports also suggest that at least several hundreds were taken away. UNHCR is deeply alarmed by the reported incident. The situation is traumatic and distressing, understandably, not only for the relatives of the missing, but for all the displaced communities residing in Shire. We reiterate our call on all parties to ensure that protection of civilians, including the forcibly displaced, is ensured. It is crucial that all parties to the conflict recognize the civilian and humanitarian character of the displacement sites hosting these internally displaced people in Shire and elsewhere in Tigray, and they remain a safe place for many thousands of people who have been forced from their homes due to the conflict.
Meanwhile, the United Nations is warning that as many as 400,000 people have fled the Congolese city of Goma amid fears of a fresh volcanic eruption at nearby Mount Nyiragongo. On Thursday, officials ordered the city to be partially evacuated, worried that lava flows into Lake Kivu would generate a tsunami and toxic gas cloud.
Residents of DRC's eastern city, Goma, have been told evacuation is compulsory amidst warnings that another volcanic eruption could occur with very little or no warning. Thousands of people are now fleeing the Democratic Republic of Congo city as no one knows when a new eruption would occur.
Journalists and authorities have said that people should follow the routes and directions they gave us on where to go in the event of an eruption. They also said that only a few neighborhoods should live in peace, without panic, so as not to cause death or accidents. But unfortunately, when people see some people fleeing, they flee because they are afraid. This is why we ask for the grace of God.
Many of the residents are leaving their cracked houses as mandated by authorities, picking their way across landscapes scarred with lava.
A crack just appeared behind my house, very big one, that had to be covered by people with stones. This morning, authorities said that wherever there are cracks, the inhabitants must move and leave these places. They told us to evacuate and go to Sake. At first, we were reluctant, but then we saw that everyone was leaving. All of Kishi left. All our neighbors left.
Officials are now warning that magma has been detected beneath Goma and the adjoining Lake Kivu, and that an eruption could happen at any time. Volcanologists warned early on Thursday that in a worst-case scenario, a volcanic eruption under the lake, accompanied by an earthquake, could trigger a sudden release of carbon dioxide, and such an explosion could asphyxiate thousands of people. Nearby Mount Nyiragongo is one of the world's most active and dangerous volcanoes. It erupted on Saturday, May 22nd, killing at least 31 people, leaving thousands homeless as some 17 villages were destroyed. The city of Goma is now half empty, looking like a ghost town. People are heading out of the city in cars, boats, across Lake Kivu, or on foot. Many are moving into neighboring Rwanda, the Virunga National Park, or even across Lake Kivu.
It's World Menstrual Hygiene Day, and this year's theme is Action and Investment in Menstrual Hygiene and Health. The objective behind this day is to create awareness among every individual regarding the challenges and hardships girls and women face during their monthly periods.
11-year-old Navetu Shinambu is the firstborn child in a family of 3 children. Life has not been kind to her. With both of her parents unemployed, they live in a shack at the back of the yard. Like many children of her age, she has dreams.
My dream is to just my little brothers and sisters go to school and achieve their goals, and my mom to have a business that she always wanted, a salon, and my father just to wear good in a higher company in South Africa. And then for me just to achieve my goal that I want to be a model and I want to be a journalist.
The most exciting activities for her and her peers are the social activities that happen at the girls' room, also known as the cave, where they are taught about girl stuff, as they call it, and how to overcome peer pressure and teen social ills.
We create an environment in which they can eradicate all the kind of obstacles that they receive at home and in society. So we are really about ensuring that we build resilience in our young girls in particular.
Like Navetu, 14-year-old Pulani Matlokotsi is facing similar challenges. She also comes to the center to socialize with the other girls. And she says since she enrolled at the center, her life has changed for the better. All COVID screened, they're preparing for a mini concert.
Yeah, I think it plays a big role because if I wasn't here, I wouldn't have sanitary pads and panty liners, and we have a computer lab. We can develop our academics.
Tandun Tombela is 13, and she says since she got involved in various activities of the teenage girls at the center, the school performance has also improved significantly.
Coming here to Girlsock have boosted my self-esteem, my confidence, and I've learned a lot of things from the minor talk, like teenage pregnancy, peer pressure, a lot of things, and they're really being a very important thing in my life.
Most of these girls come from severely impoverished backgrounds, and this comes with its set of challenges in their daily lives. In this girls' room, they get their physical and emotional needs or questions attended to. Bertha Mahohe, who heads the center, says she's doing her part to break the poverty cycle by empowering these girls to become agents of social transformation. As for Naveta and her peers alike, they say they see their bright future and are determined to get there against any odds. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Betty Dibia, Channels Television News.
Post-impressionist artist Vincent van Gogh's masterpiece came to life in a breathtaking exhibit called Immersive Van Gogh at Pier 36, a 70,000 square foot facility located on Manhattan's Lower East Side. Journalists were treated to a visual spectacle as Van Gogh's works floated, spun and transformed with some works such as Iris and Starry Night, blooming and rippling before the viewer's eyes. Immersive Van Gogh opens to the public on June the 10th. Beautiful. Well, that's it on The World Today. Thank you for watching. I'm Jockey Rogers.